Hello and welcome back to another episode of Math with Sohn. Today we are going to be figuring out the key features of a parabola. So let's get into it. So a parabola is just a x squared equation, and there are a few things about a parabola that are labeled as kind of vocab. And most of them go around this vertex. So that's the first thing. That point at the bottom is known as the vertex. And the vertex contains an x and a y value. And that x value will represent the axis of symmetry, because everything is symmetrical around that. And it is this vertical line where everything can go butterfly-y around. And it is typically represented with a x equals equation. So if the vertex was, let's say in this case, 4, negative 2, the axis of symmetry would be x equals 4, because that is the vertical line that everything is folding across. Now, this point, the y value, is either going to represent the minimum or the maximum, and that is based off of, is the parabola facing up or is it facing down? And in this case, it is facing up, which makes this bottom point a minimum at negative 2. So it is a minimum at negative 2. And if it faced down, if we just had it facing down, it would just change to being a maximum at wherever that is. So if that was up at like 3, then the maximum would be at 3. But it is either a min or a max. You can't have both. Cannot have both. And then, of course, you have your basic Y-intercept, which in this case looks like we can make it 5 or 3 or whatever. And the only other part of the graph that is really, really important are these guys right here. These are both the x-intercepts. The x-intercepts. The x-intercepts are the solutions to the graph. They are also known as the zeros to the graph. And they're also known as the x-intercepts as well. Like, they're just called the x-intercepts, so they have a lot of different names, and you get those sometimes by graphing. You can get close by graphing, but normally you will find the x-intercepts by doing some sort of solving method, like factoring or the quadratic formula, completing the square, so on and so forth. Okay, so those are all the key features of the graph except for one, and that would be the domain and the range. Anytime you learn a new graph for almost any math class, you're going to be asked to find the domain and range. And parabolas, the domain is always going to be going to the left and to the right forever. So the domain in this case is going to be all real numbers. You could write negative infinity to positive infinity with the parentheses because it doesn't equal it. You could also write your fancy looking R or all real numbers. All of those are acceptable versions of an answer. The range is not all real numbers, and it's dependent on the vertex, which is potentially the most important part. And the range is going up from the y value that I just kind of was like eyeballing at negative 2. So you would say from negative 2 to positive infinity. You could also say y is greater than or equal to negative 2. Okay? So those are the key features. The only thing that would change is if the graph faces down. And if the graph faces down, then it would change from a minimum to a maximum. Everything else would remain the same. And that's the basic vocab. Until next time, stay positive, and I will see everybody later. Bye.